Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving into something that quietly destroys progress for English learners.
Yes, and the scary part is most people don't even realize they're making these mistakes.
Exactly. They keep studying, putting in effort, but somehow they stay stuck at the same level.
So today, we're going to unpack these deadly mistakes, one by one, honestly, openly, and practically.
Let's start with the first one, fear of making mistakes.
This one is huge. People wait until they feel ready before they speak.
And that ready moment never comes.
Never, because language isn't something you perfect in your head. It's something you build by using it.
I've seen learners who understand everything but freeze when it's time to talk.
That's because they've trained themselves to avoid errors instead of communicating ideas.
Which is ironic, because mistakes are actually the fastest way to improve.
Exactly. Every mistake is feedback. It shows you where to grow.
So if you're avoiding speaking because you're afraid of being wrong, you're slowing yourself down.
You're not protecting your progress. You're blocking it.
Let's move to the second mistake, translating everything in your head.
This one creates a mental traffic jam.
You hear something in English, translate it into your native language, think of a response, then translate it back.
By the time you're ready to speak, the conversation has already moved on.
Exactly, and it makes your speech slow and unnatural.
The goal is to think in English, not translate into it.
But that takes time, right?
It does, but you can start small. Simple thoughts, daily activities, even talking to yourself.
Like narrating your day.
Yes, I'm making tea. I'm going outside. This is difficult, simple, direct thinking in English.
That's how you build fluency internally.
Let's talk about the third mistake, focusing too much on grammar.
This one surprises people.
It does, because grammar feels like the safe part of learning.
Rules, structure, correctness, it feels productive.
But if grammar becomes your main focus, you stop actually using the language.
You become a silent expert.
Exactly. Great at exercises, but struggling in real conversations.
Native speakers don't think about grammar rules when they talk.
They've internalized patterns through exposure and use.
So grammar should support your learning, not dominate it.
Learn it, yes, but don't hide behind it.
Fourth mistake, not listening enough.
This is underrated. People want to speak, but they don't train their ears.
And listening is the foundation of language.
If you don't understand what others are saying, communication breaks down.
Exactly, and listening isn't passive, it's an active skill.
You have to train it consistently.
Podcasts, movies, conversations.
Even repeating what you hear, shadowing, mimicking pronunciation.
That's how you improve your natural rhythm and flow.
Fifth mistake, learning words without context.
Vocabulary lists.
Yes, long lists of random words that you forget a week later.
Because there's no connection.
Words need context to stick.
Sentences, stories, situations.
Exactly. Instead of learning run, learn I run every morning.
It becomes usable, not just recognizable.
Sixth mistake, inconsistency.
This one quietly kills progress.
People study hard for 2 days, then stop for a week.
Then start again, then stop again.
Language learning rewards consistency, not intensity.
10 minutes every day is better than 2 hours once a week.
Because your brain builds habits through repetition.
Not through occasional bursts.
Seventh mistake, comparing yourself to others.
This is dangerous.
Very. Everyone learns at a different pace.
But when you compare, you feel behind.
And that kills motivation.
You start thinking, why am I not as good as them?
Instead of focusing on your own improvement.
The only useful comparison is with your past self.
Are you better than you were last month?
That's what matters.
Eighth mistake, not practicing speaking in real situations.
Practice in isolation only goes so far.
You need real interaction.
Conversations, even imperfect ones,
Even awkward ones.
especially awkward ones.
Because that's where growth happens.
You learn to think on your feet.
To adapt, to respond, to clarify.
Ninth mistake, giving up too early.
This might be the most heartbreaking one.
People expect fast results,
And when they don't see them, they quit.
but language learning is a long game,
Progress is slow, then suddenly fast.
like building momentum.
You don't see it at first, but it's happening.
And if you quit, you lose all that hidden progress.
10th mistake, not enjoying the process.
This is overlooked.
If learning feels like punishment, you won't stick with it.
You need to find joy in it.
Movies you like, topics you care about, conversations that excite you.
That emotional connection makes learning stick.
Because you're not just studying, you're living the language.
And that changes everything.
Because when learning becomes part of your life, not a task on your list, you stop forcing progress.
And that's when real fluency starts to build in a way that feels natural, effortless, and surprisingly fast. Which brings us to something most learners don't even realize they're doing wrong.
And that next mistake is subtle, but it affects almost everyone at some point, relying too much on passive learning.
You mean just watching videos, listening to podcasts, scrolling through lessons.
Exactly. It feels like you're learning because you're exposed to English.
But you're not actively using it.
Right. Passive input is important, but without output, your brain stays in recognition mode, not production mode.
So you understand, but you can't respond.
And that gap can be frustrating.
So what's the fix?
Turn passive learning into active practice. Pause, repeat, summarize, speak out loud.
Even talking to yourself.
Especially talking to yourself.
That builds confidence before real conversations.
Exactly. Now let's talk about another mistake, expecting perfection.
This one ties back to fear.
It does. People want to sound like native speakers immediately.
Perfect grammar, perfect pronunciation.
And when they can't achieve that, they feel like they're failing.
But perfection isn't the goal, communication is.
Yes, if people understand you, you're already succeeding.
Fluency grows from clarity, not perfection.
And perfection actually comes after fluency, not before.
That's a powerful shift in mindset.
It really is. Now here's another mistake, ignoring pronunciation.
Some learners focus so much on words and grammar that they forget how they sound.
And pronunciation is what makes your speech understandable.
You can use perfect grammar, but if your pronunciation is unclear, communication suffers.
Exactly. And the good news is it's trainable.
Through listening and imitation.
Yes, mimic native speakers. Pay attention to rhythm, stress, and intonation.
Not just individual sounds.
Right English is musical. It has patterns.
And learning those patterns makes you sound more natural.
Next mistake, learning without a clear goal.
This is like traveling without a destination.
You move, but you don't know where you're going.
So progress feels random.
Exactly. You need a purpose. Why are you learning English?
For work, travel, education.
Once you know your goal, your learning becomes focused.
And more efficient.
Because you prioritize what actually matters.
That makes a big difference.
Another mistake, not reviewing what you've learned.
People learn new things every day, but forget to revisit them.
And without review, memory fades quickly.
It's like pouring water into a leaking bucket.
Exactly. You need repetition to lock things in.
So revisiting old lessons is just as important as learning new ones.
Sometimes even more important.
That's something many learners overlook.
Definitely. Now let's talk about overloading yourself.
Trying to learn too much at once.
Yes, too many apps, too many resources, too many methods.
That creates confusion.
And burnout.
You end up doing a little of everything, but mastering nothing.
Exactly. Simplicity is powerful.
Choose a few good resources and stick with them.
Consistency over complexity.
That's a great way to put it.
Another mistake, not asking for feedback.
This one is important.
Very. Without feedback, you don't know what you're doing wrong.
So mistakes become habits.
Exactly. And those habits become harder to fix over time.
So getting corrections early is key.
Yes, whether from teachers, friends, or language partners.
Even apps can help to some extent.
As long as you're open to correction.
That's the hard part for some people.
It is, but growth requires honesty.
True, now here's another one. Sticking only to what feels comfortable.
This is a silent trap.
You keep practicing what you already know,
Because it feels good.
but there's no growth there.
Growth happens outside your comfort zone.
Difficult conversations, new vocabulary, unfamiliar topics.
That's where real progress lives.
So discomfort is actually a good sign.
It means you're stretching your ability.
And that's necessary.
Another mistake, not being patient with yourself.
This ties into expectations,
Yes, people underestimate how long language learning takes.
and they become frustrated too quickly.
But frustration is part of the process.
It doesn't mean you're failing.
It means you're learning.
That's an important distinction,
Very. And if you stay consistent, progress will come.
even if it feels slow at times,
Especially then.
because that's when your brain is working behind the scenes,
Building connections, strengthening understanding.
preparing you for that breakthrough moment.
And when it happens, it feels incredible.
Like everything suddenly clicks.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important not to quit right before that moment.
Because just when it feels like nothing is changing, everything is actually aligning beneath the surface in a way you can't yet see, which leads directly into another mistake that quietly keeps learners stuck without them even realizing it.
And that mistake is not immersing yourself enough in the language.
People treat English like a subject instead of a living environment.
Exactly. They study it for an hour, then go back to their native language for the rest of the day.
So their exposure is limited.
Very limited. Imagine trying to learn swimming by practicing only once a week.
You won't improve much,
Language works the same way. You need immersion, constant contact.
but not everyone lives in an English-speaking country.
You don't have to. You can create your own environment.
Hell,
Change your phone language. Watch content in English. Follow English creators.
even thinking and journaling in English.
Yes, that's powerful. You surround your brain with the language.
So it becomes familiar.
And familiarity builds fluency.
That makes sense. Now what's next?
Another big mistake, focusing only on formal English.
Like textbook language.
Yes, very correct, but not natural in real conversations.
So learners sound robotic.
Exactly. Real English includes slang, contractions, informal expressions.
Like gonna, wanna, kind of.
Yes, and understanding those makes a huge difference.
Because that's how people actually speak.
Right. If you ignore that, real conversations feel confusing.
So balance is important.
Formal for structure, informal for real-life use.
Got it, another mistake.
Avoiding listening to different accents.
Ah, this is interesting.
Many learners get used to one accent, maybe American or British.
Then they struggle to understand others.
Exactly. English is a global language.
You'll hear many accents: African, Indian, Australian.
And each one has its own rhythm and pronunciation.
So exposure is key.
Yes, the more you listen, the more adaptable you become.
That's a practical tip.
Here's another mistake, memorizing without understanding.
Like repeating phrases without knowing what they mean.
Exactly. It creates shallow knowledge.
So when the context changes, you get stuck.
Yes, understanding gives flexibility.
While memorization alone creates dependency.
That's a good way to put it.
So always ask why, not just what.
Exactly. Now let's talk about neglecting writing skills.
Some people focus only on speaking and listening.
But writing strengthens your thinking
It forces clarity.
and helps you organize your ideas in English.
Even simple journaling can help.
Yes, daily reflections, short paragraphs, anything.
It builds structure over time.
And that improves speaking too.
Everything is connected.
Always. Now here's another subtle mistake, not celebrating small wins.
That affects motivation.
A lot. People only focus on how far they still have to go.
And ignore how far they've come.
Exactly. But progress is made of small steps.
Understanding a sentence, learning a new word, having a short conversation.
Those moments matter.
They build confidence.
And confidence fuels consistency.
which leads to fluency.
Another mistake, being too dependent on teachers or apps.
So waiting to be guided all the time.
Yes, instead of taking ownership of learning.
That slows independence.
Exactly. You need to become an active learner.
Exploring, experimenting, practicing on your own.
That's when growth accelerates.
Because you're not limited to structured lessons.
Right, you learn from life itself.
That's powerful.
Now here's another one, ignoring cultural context.
Language isn't just words.
It's culture, humor, expressions, ways of thinking.
Without that, communication feels incomplete.
Exactly. You might understand the words but miss the meaning.
So learning culture improves comprehension.
And makes your communication more natural.
That's something people often overlook.
Definitely. And finally, one of the most important mistakes,
I'm curious.
not believing that you can actually become fluent.
That mindset can stop everything.
It does. If you believe it's impossible, you won't fully commit.
You'll hold back.
And that limits your progress before you even begin.
So belief matters.
A lot, because learning a language is not just a skill, it's a journey of identity.
You're becoming someone who can express themselves in a new way.
Exactly, and that takes courage.
But it's absolutely possible.
For anyone who stays consistent, open, and patient.
So if you've been making some of these mistakes,
Don't feel discouraged.
just become aware
Adjust your approach,
and keep going,
because every step you take
no matter how small.
is moving you closer to fluency in ways you may not even notice yet. And when you finally look back, you'll realize that the person who once struggled to form simple sentences has transformed into someone who can think, speak, and connect effortlessly in English, which is exactly why understanding and avoiding these mistakes isn't just helpful. It's absolutely essential if you truly want to move forward without wasting years repeating the same patterns over and over again.